Welcome back to Secret Weapons, and today we're taking a look at the Old Blood Noise Endeavor's Expression Ramper X3. It seems like over the last couple of years, some of my favorite products that we've seen come to market have been iterative products, things that were released, improved upon, and then released again with a bunch of great additions to them. Chase Bliss is a great example of this kind of thing. Pedals like the Mood Mark II and the Gen Loss Mark II are massive improvements on their kind of like Gen 1 counterparts. Another good example would be back here, the EchoFix Chorus Echo EF-X3. The X2 is great. The X3 is one of the best pieces of gear I've ever owned in my entire life. But iterating towards a better product is not just limited to high-ticket items. There are some really amazing, small, utility-style pieces out there that deserve that same thing. And Old Blood has done that with their Expression Ramper, a incredibly cool auto expression device that they released a couple of years ago. We are here today talking about the Expression Ramper X3 by Old Blood Noise Endeavors. And this is, as the name might imply, 3 expression rampers in one device, but it's also a lot more than that. So let's talk about it. But before we get into what's new in the X3, let's talk about what an expression ramper is. You can essentially think of it as an automated expression pedal, wherein you use a little toggle switch up here to set your heel position, your toe position, and then the rate at which it moves between those 2 points. Effectively, what you're doing is automating the ability to take a traditional expression pedal, and instead of this being all the way down and this being all the way up, you can actually set what this heel down position represents on the twist or the throw of a parameter. So if you don't want your heel down position to be the absolute bottom of the range on a device, you can actually set it higher with the expression ramper. And likewise, you can set the toe as well. So you basically have the entire throw of something like this, but only across the range of a parameter that you want to control with this. The other massive benefits to the expression ramper is, 1, it will do it automatically for you at a set interval. So you can basically set it to kind of move between those heel and toe positions continuously at any rate you want them to. You can also choose a waveform at which they kind of move between your A and B points. You have access to a sine wave where it will kind of smoothly transition back and forth between those 2 spots, or a square wave where it will automatically go between the 2 with no gap in between, which is something you can't actually do with a real expression pedal. You also have access to what is called one shot, where each time you press the corresponding foot switch, it will go from A to B or B to A one time. An expression pedal or an expression ramper by itself, just the one section of the pedal, is already a really cool device. As you know, if you've ever played one, if you've seen somebody who uses them on their pedalboard, or if you've seen my previous video on it. And I think that all brings us to the new Expression Ramper X3. Like I said, it is 3 expression rampers in one device with some really cool added quality of life and iterative goodness. You have a onboard tap tempo on ramper number 1, which can also be thought of as effectively the kind of like main ramper on this thing, the main expression control across this device. You also have an external tap or expression input on the top, as well as a tap out on the side, which actually would allow you to sync multiple Expression Ramper X3s together in case you were in a position where you wanted to control 6 devices all at the same time using these fascinating little tools. Each of the 3 expression rampers on this device can be configured completely independently of one another. You've got, like I said, on number 1, you have your set controls and your shape controls, and then you have that little tap tempo. It clicks. 2 and 3 have your set and your shape, but in the middle you have a sync 3-way position. And what that effectively allows you to do is, in the bottom position, it operates as a totally independent expression ramper. In the second position, you have rate, where the rate is set by the tap tempo or the knob on that first ramper. And at that point, your rate controls on 2 and 3 become subdivisions, keeping everything locked in sync, but not necessarily perfectly aligned. So like all your devices aren't falling at the same time and rising at the same time. They can be set to kind of be subdivisions of one another. And you'll hear in our sound samples, it adds a ton of movement and breadth and complexity to what you're doing. Or thirdly, you can actually kick it up to that third position and set them to all, wherein every single change you make on number one is going to cascade down the line and keep all three devices completely in lockstep with one another. And this kind of stuff really is the epitome of show, don't tell, because to talk about what this thing does is really to kind of speak in the abstract about kind of what the use cases should be. I think it's way more effective to just hear it. So this is a funny video where the sound samples are more instructional, but are also more about other devices and how something like this makes them better. So we're gonna go to our pedal board where we have this thing hooked into the Mood Mark II, the Generation Loss Mark II, and the Hologram Microcosm, each one controlling a specific parameter on that device with this thing, with intention, different styles of control across all three to create movement and complexity and nuance in your sound that would be fundamentally impossible without something like this. So let's get into it. As always, before we get into our sound samples, let's talk through our signal chain and the context we are working in. I am playing my Balaguer Beau Burchell Signature Woodsman into the Empress Compressor Mark II, a boost pedal, and the Universal Audio Dream, which is operating as our amplifier. From there, we go to the Bliss Mood Mark II, stereo out to the Generation Loss Mark II, stereo out to the Microcosm, stereo out to the CXM 1978 Reverb by Bliss and Maris. From there, we go to our DAW, which is Universal Audio's Luna, where we are using a Neve 1073 as our preamp. Here is our dry tone. As you can hear, we've got the compressor pumping a little bit just to give us some dynamic control on the smaller notes. And we have the expression ramper set up kind of to match the visual of everything. So rightmost expression ramper is going to go to the mood directly above it. The middle, the yellow channel, is going to go directly to the Generation Loss directly above that. And then finally, the purple one is going to go over to our Hologram Microcosm. The way I want to break this down is we're going to start by kind of showcasing the various kind of values of having them routed to multiple different pedals at the same time. We'll use each one to kind of showcase a different kind of approach, basically, a different use case, as well as a different way that you can use the control scheme on the Ramper X3. And then we will kind of showcase the way that they can all be set up independently or linked. Let's go ahead and start off with the basics of an expression ramper mapped to the mood. So right now we have the mood set up with a delay. And I have my expression input on the mood set up to be attached to the clock. That way, when we change things, it changes the speed of the delay, but in a heavily quantized and very digital sounding kind of like way. And so for this first channel, let's go ahead and make it so our shape is the square. So between the three of them, you have a sine wave where it will kind of gently flow between the 2 points on the expression ramper. Square, where it automatically jumps to 2 predetermined points, or one shot, where it just makes the jump right away. And we can showcase that on this one as well. So let's go ahead and set our A, our B, and then we'll take a look at that rate with the tap and the one shot for this switch down below. So let's go ahead and set our A parameter. Our B parameter. And you can always use one shot as a fast way of auditioning those two positions. And then for rate, if we have it set to our square, you can press and it will start kind of jumping between the two determined spots in a quantized method, so no kind of fluidity to it. And on this first channel, you also have a quarter note tap tempo. Or the ability to set your rate using just the knob itself. But for these purposes, we're going to use the tap for this one, and we're going to leave it in that square, and we're going to tap it nice and slow. Let's actually take it even slower than that. So it can be set incredibly slow, which is quite nice. But as you can hear, it's a great way of kind of automating some really cool predetermined pitch stuff in a pedal like the Mood Mark II. But it's also not the kind of use case where I would be as big of a fan of using the sine wave for this reason. It just steps through too many pitches in this use case, you know what I mean? So half the battle with something like the expression ramper is understanding kind of best shape for the job at hand. So let's leave that one on our square. Nice and slow. I mean, even right there, you throw a big reverb after it. It's just instantly the coolest thing. Another fun trick for specifically the Mood and the expression ramper together is jumping over to the reverb. Actually gives you this really cool kind of like smashing plates sound. And let's go to our one shot because I think it's a good use case for that. Bring up our reverb. Oh, let's go ahead and set that's what we want. We want one of them set really, really close to like maximum clock. And then when we do our one shot, or let's just let it kind of move between them. Give ourselves a little bit more time on the decay. That sound is actually incredibly rad. Let's take that reverb at full wet. This is not the point of this video, but it does sound cool, and if we're not doing cool things, then why are we even doing this? Yeah, let's not get too distracted with this, but expression ramper, immediately useful. You gotta love it. And that's just for one of the modules, and that's not even everything we're trying to do here today. Okay, let's jump over to number 2 and showcase a use case for the sine wave, as well as the ability to kind of marry shared rates here. So let's go ahead and take our sync here, knock it up from off, which would allow all 3 expression rampers in this thing to operate independently of one another completely, including their speeds. And instead set it so that when we bring this one back in with that tap tempo, they will sync together, with this one being a subdivision of the tap tempo on the first one. Let's go ahead and showcase this sine wave. So we have the generation loss. Failure is a really cool sound in the Gen Loss Mark II. Those kind of crackly dropouts. But you don't always want that much of it. So let's go up to A. Set it so that we're not getting a lot of that. Go to number 2. We could go full failure. We're instead going to go like half failure. And then we can set our rates. Let's go ahead and for now take that back off so that we're not linked to this. And now we have and once again, a great opportunity for one-shots. Allowing you to just kind of like access that when you want it, but not when you don't. And again, in this context, we can do a shared rate situation here. Bring that delay back in. And now we can basically allow failure to kind of drift somewhat synchronized with the changes on the mood. And if you caught that, no matter how fast I make this right now, it will sync to the rate control on expression ramper number 1. And finally, let's go ahead and take a look at another use case here. Let's take out the mood and the generation loss and take a look at this third channel, its relationship to, in this case, the microcosm, which I have running as a control over the filter on here. So let's go ahead and bring in haze, take out the reverb. And again, now we have our ability to automatically kind of like roll that filter open and close. And you have the added ability to do some really interesting stuff like sync the rate once again across the board to all three. So this one is the kind of master control for all three rates. And you can hear how all three of those will kind of like work in tandem. And just for a bit of context, this is what this sounds like if you are using the same pedals but not ramping any of this. It's cool, but and of course, turn on that big reverb at the end. Why would you not? It just allows everything to breathe and move in this really fascinating way. And of course, we have things set up right now where our A and Bs are all set independently on a channel by channel basis. You also can go ahead and kick these sync controls for one or both of the subsequent channels 2 and 3. so that everything all operates on the kind of like main channel. You see now everything is like fully synced into itself. And you'll hear if I make changes, it's adjusting the parameters for all 3 channels just on this one knob. See, totally like ganged across the board. Which can be very, very cool, especially if you're doing some really kind of like creative parallel routing. I'm a really big fan of rate locking, allowing them to kind of like be subdivisions of channel 1, but really giving each one its own kind of like space to move. So the Expression Ramper Mark III clearly has built massively on its original design. The ability to chain this into another one if you wanted to control just a million things on your pedal board kind of makes it a kind of the sky is the limit style device, which is really fun to contend with. Even as you hear it right now, there's fascinating movement happening kind of in the stereo field as filters rise and fall and clock speeds change. It just offers something that you would not be able to do with the pedals by themselves. And you don't even have to get into MIDI, which would be a ton of work to kind of like spin up something like this. Expression Ramper should work with most expression capable devices out there. And like I said, tap and expression input as well. If you are having trouble getting your Expression Ramper to work with any specific pedal you have, consult the manual. There are internal jumpers that will configure it for different styles of TRS expression. So don't be afraid to open up the back of this device and take a look if something seems amiss. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.